Hey there, YouTube. Spirit Smoker here. Sorry I haven't been around for a little while. Been busy. Today we're smoking a little Graybo estate pipe that I picked up at a antique shop. They just happen to have a few Graybos laying around. I think this is the one that actually came with a stand. Nice little 6-pipe stand. Very nice. And in it, we're smoking a little bit of that English that I've been working on. Still working on it. It's very, very Latakia heavy at the moment, which I like. But I'm thinking of adding a few different components to it to brighten it up ever so slightly, or just make it more flavorful. From what I can tell, however, great room note. Definitely a good outdoor smoke though. Not something that would make a whole lot of people very happy indoors. Very small pipe, so not a very long smoke with this one, but I wanted to talk about a discussion that my dad and I had on Sunday evening. And what brought the conversation up was this shooting in Texas. This terrible church shooting. "26 people dead." I never got an actual number on how many were injured. Apparently everyone in the church was injured who wasn't killed. It's what I just heard recently. It's Wednesday now, and we've learned so much about that, but not necessarily just pertaining to that, but again, that is what brought it up. Brought up this conversation. We were talking about school shootings, we were talking about things like this that have been happening more and more frequently, it seems, and whenever you get two guys sitting around with whiskey and tobacco, we start solving the world's problems, I think. And but we were talking about this sort of thing happening, and we were trying to figure out what changed in history, because when my grandfather went to school, he tells me all the time that when he was a kid, they brought their pocket knives to school. It was part of what a kid had, when the parents deemed the kid old enough and responsible enough to do so, that the kid got a pocket knife and he would bring it to school. They'd sharpen their pencils with it. They'd get out of class and go toss it at a tree. Maybe play a game of Mumble Peg or something like that, and there were never any school stabbings. There was never any threat like that. Back then, even when my dad was in school, they had gun safety courses in school. Police officer or a trained professional of some sort or another would come into school and teach kids about proper gun handling and how to make sure a gun is safe if they ever found one, and the dangers and the responsibilities of gun ownership and of gun handling. And again, no school shootings. So we thought, education. That would probably clear this up. Maybe. And then we thought a little bit further, and I brought up the fact that sex ed is now taught, at much younger ages, and we have more teen pregnancy, unwed mother pregnancy, than ever before. I mean, there's literally 10-year-olds, 9-year-olds getting pregnant. And of course, since then, the internet has changed everything, right? You have access to unlimited information. You see it in advertisements all over the place. So those types of things have changed. So I would like to say that the jury is still out on whether education in that realm is going to be helpful. Might be too early to tell. So then we went back and looked at another thing. What has changed in the world that would make someone more likely to bring a gun into a school or bring a gun to some place and shoot up, some area? And I referred to Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman's book, Stop Teaching Our Kids to Kill. It's basically a book about how media, in the form of video games and television, are basically showing kids how to kill at in an insanely realistic level these days. Not only that, you get rewards for doing so. You level up. Even if you get shot and killed, the screen goes red and then you come back, right? So we thought, well, that has changed big time. That's revolutionized an entire industry. Is creating stuff like that with Call of Duty and Modern Warfare, whatever the hell they're called, and all that kind of thing. I mean, if a kid gets his hands on something like that and learns that type of information, it really has a nasty effect. And to the people who say that doesn't affect a kid's thinking, or a person's thinking in general, just to give you an idea of this, when the Duck Hunter game first came out in arcades, the game where you took the toy gun and shot ducks on a screen, the military took that and actually adapted it as instead of ducks, there would be planes and there would be people popping up, and that was a training system for military back when that game first came out. That was the first simulated shooting with a video game. I mean, amazing. So that kind of thing really does have a huge effect on people's minds. It really, really does. When it's basic psychology. When you do something, you get rewarded for it. It feels good. You want to keep doing it. And the more and more realistic something looks, the more and more people, especially easily influence people, such as young kids. Logic would say that it makes them more and more likely to do that kind of thing, especially when they, if they have trouble at home or if they already have a pre-existing mental condition that maybe even hasn't been diagnosed yet. There's a lot of different reasons that something like that can happen. So then, we went back and we said, well, okay, so what, if those are the causes these days, then what could possibly prevent this kind of thing? If it's not necessarily education's fault, what could change or what has changed? And basically the answer that we kind of came to, and that I'm sure that, you would come to if you thought about it or if you have thought about it, is parenting. And it all comes straight down to parenting. It all comes down to the fact that if you know, if a parent maybe has to work two jobs or quite frankly, as is the case a lot these days, is the parent just doesn't give a shit about what the kid does as long as they are over there playing their video game and they've shut up, then it's no big deal, or they don't care where their kid is at any hour of the night or what party they go to or anything like that. When a parent stops being a parent, when a parent stops guiding their children like they ought to do, because guess what, they are parents, that's when you sort of start losing control over a generation. And I think that, to me at least, has been the sort of the ground-breaking thing. You know, back in those times, like, you know, with my grandfather and my dad, you know, that there were very, very, very few single-family households. You know, not to bring this up, but, you know, mothers pretty much stayed home all the time, and there was a much more ethical upbringing as well. And in fact, a very religious upbringing, I'm sure, as well in most areas. And even if it wasn't, you know, mom was always home, or someone anyway was almost always home. And you know, if a friend came over, you know, well, granted, there obviously weren't video games to play, but I would have to imagine that if the parents of those days were around now, they probably wouldn't be too, you know, approving of some of the stuff that the kids are into. And it would be put an end to, because, you know, you would smack the kid on the ass, and, you know, that would probably set him straight, rather than, you know, just saying, oh good, you shut up. You know, it's that's just, that was our take on it anyway. I'm not saying that if you're watching this and you're a parent that you're a bad parent, because not all parents are bad parents. But there is, however, a surgence of bad parents in this time. Now, I'm not saying that this shooter, like I said, it wasn't about this, but I'm not saying that this shooter in Texas had a bad upbringing. Maybe he did. I don't know. Clearly, mentally, he was not all there. Clearly, someone didn't go through the proper channels to make sure this guy never got a gun. You know, I don't want to make this a Second Amendment debate or argument or anything like that. I just wanted to bring up the fact that you know, I think that a lot of what could possibly help at least lower these problems that we're having. I think that parenting could definitely make huge headway. Good parenting could make huge headway in starting to do that. In other avenues as well. I mean, the DARE initiative is gone, and, you know, coincidence that since the DARE initiative is gone, there's been a huge lack of respect for police, a huge rebellion against police. Whereas back then, the first experience that a kid really ever had with the police was in school, looking at a common goal, you know, of keeping the school safe and presented in a kid-friendly environment around friends. You know, I'm not saying that the education of, hey, drugs are bad, did you not know this, really worked. I'm just saying that maybe the interaction with the police, acting as more of a mentor than an authority figure, you know, could have helped. But thanks guys so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Hope you have a great day.